Thank you very much. Firstly, I just want to say I'm really honoured to be here with you today. Some fantastic companies coming talking to you. I just wish I'd been to something like this when I was in your position, because there's a hell of a lot of great places to go and work straight out of school. But that's not why I'm here. I'm here to talk about British Sugar. What do we do? Well, if you ask my 3-year-old daughter, she'll tell you I make clouds for a living, and that's probably what most of you see every day when you drive past the factory. But really, I want you to get a sense of what actually happens inside a sugar factory, a little bit about the roles that we do. And excuse the puns, we're pretty bad at them. So firstly, a video. What I really want to demonstrate this is just to give you a quick sense of inside our factory, because all you see is a small glimpse as you drive past. And as a really important landmark in Suffolk in general, and Norfolk, and all over the East Coast, it'd be really good to get a bit more context for you.
Working to save energy and finding ingenious ways to ensure we utilise every part of the sugar beet manufacturing process is at the heart of everything we do at British Sugar. The really impressive thing that struck me since I've joined is there's practically zero waste in the manufacture of sugar. As well as producing sugar, we supply energy to the national grid. So the energy that we make from the sugar making process fuels approximately 60,000 homes in the UK. The fibrous material that sugar beet is made of is turned into animal feed. The soil that comes into the factory that's stuck onto the sugar beet, we turn into topsoil.
My role on site is to ensure everybody that's working here is aware of their environmental responsibilities. One day is never the same as the next. I can go from sitting at my desk completing my returns for the Environmental Agency to looking at water usage to looking at projects about energy. It's about not just being compliant, it's about going beyond that. Using all our resources carefully so we are protecting the natural world we live in.
Even from a young child, I've been interested in conserving energy and helping the planet. Throughout university, it's something I was very interested in, and that's the reason I applied to join British Sugar. I saw their bioethanol plant, started looking more and saw all the different ways they use the co-products. I thought, yeah, this is a company that I really want to work for. So these are some electrical improvements we made. These save the equivalent of 40 UK households' carbon emissions each year. Heat and steam play a massive role in the production of sugar. So we're always looking forward to see how can we use the energy more efficiently and so we can use less of it. We have a combined heat and power plant here, power station generating electricity, and that waste heat that would normally go up to the atmosphere being no use, we use that. So that's a massive energy and carbon saving by reusing all that waste heat. The anaerobic digestion plant is basically just a big mechanical cow. We take the pulp, feedstock, it's had all the sugar taken out of it, and we feed it into the plant. This generates methane, and we're using it to generate electricity for the grid. So this is carbon neutral electricity generation, and will help the grid as a whole transition to net zero. We're looking to do lots more of this in the future.
I'm proud to work for an organisation that's helping the UK efforts towards net zero and the green jobs recovery.
So British Sugar, we've been around for nearly 100 years in this town. First campaign was 1925. Back then the farmers were pulling beet out of the ground by hand and bringing them in the back of a wagon. Those days have changed quite a lot now. We're much more automated and significantly scaled up business. Back in the early 90s, we had over 19 factories across the country. We now produce the same amount of sugar in 4 just in the east. So a significant step change in our capabilities. But before I get a bit more detail about the business, I actually just want to give you a bit of a feeling for what it's like to work at British Sugar, because I think it can be quite a hard thing to comprehend, really. We're not your standard food business. We're not your standard engineering business either. When it comes to manufacturing, we're not putting toothpaste caps on tubes, and we're certainly not just putting sugar in bags. So I reflect back on one of my favourite roles I've had in the business as a shift manager, where we're actually day-to-day responsible for running the factory. I think about a single 12-hour shift and all the roles that I undertake in that role. The first one, and really cutting edge, is data analyst. We have huge amounts of data gathered in our business. on a minute-by-minute basis with which to make our process decisions. So understanding data, analysing it, and then having an output decision from that is a key part of every role in our supply chain and our overall operations. And as you look forwards, we're now starting to implement AI in this as well. So we've just started building our own large language model within the sugar industry to help us develop our technology, our knowledge base, and inform decisions for people in the future. What else am I? I'm also then a mechanical engineer within the same hour. A pump breaks down, me and my shift team have to go and resolve that problem. So you'll be exposed to big stuff, small stuff, things bigger than houses, and you'll be working on them all the same as part of your team. I'm also a welder and a pipe fitter, a plumber if you really want to break it down, but instead of pipes like this in your house, we're talking pipes like this that you could crawl through. I'm also an electrician, so I have to work with huge amounts of instrumentation, as well as low voltage equipment down at sort of 24 volt control, variable speed drives, all the way up to 33,000 volts power distribution from a large power plant. I'm also a process engineer. Now this is something that certainly when I was at school wasn't really talked about as an option, but process engineering is fascinating. Process engineer takes a chemical process in the lab and they scale it up to however big it needs to be to make money. And as a process engineer, you take physics, you take chemistry, you take mechanical, electrical engineering, you plumb it all together to create the product that you're trying to create at the end. I'm also a chemist, so taking a beet and turning it into a sugar, you don't just chop it open and pour it out. There's a really complex chemistry behind taking it from that ugly vegetable and turning it into a chemically pure final product. We'll add a bit more to that. I'm also a fireman in my job. You may or may not have seen in the news, we periodically have the odd fire on site. And as a shift team and as part of the operational team, we deal with most of those in-house. Similarly, a lot of us are first aiders and deal with all our own first aid incidents. And you start to see that in a 12-hour shift, you can take on quite a lot of different jobs, which keeps it really interesting and exciting. Which brings me to the biggest one. Actually, you're part of a team. And if you look back to the 1970s, a sugar factory took 150 people to run on an hour-by-hour basis. It now takes 10. So we've really been through that automation journey. And as the Warren guys kind of alluded to, we've taken out all those monotonous, boring jobs and transformed all of our roles into highly skilled, highly valuable knowledge worker roles, where actually you're doing the really good, interesting stuff most of the time. On top of that, you're also running a multi-billion-pound chemistry set, producing huge amounts of product and dealing with a varying income stream. So I'd consider most of the people that work at our firm to be engineers at the core, but engineering isn't a thing. It's not I can do welding, I can be a mechanic. It comes down to one fundamental thing, and it's solving problems. If you find interest and value in fixing things, making them better than they were before, or solving a problem that you can visibly see, you're an engineer. That's what we do. We just use tools that are available to us to do that. So yeah, working as part of a team to do that, that's a day in the life of a sugar factory. So a bit of context for you about British Sugar. British Sugar currently has 5 manufacturing sites, 4 of which are beet processing sites. They're based in Bury St Edmunds, Wissington in Norfolk, Cantley on the Norfolk coast, and Newark on the east coast in Lincolnshire. In terms of British Sugar, we employ around 12,000 people, and significantly more again in the supply chains beyond that. And then if you take that further afield, we support the agricultural area in the entirety of the east of England. In order to grow the amount of beet required to run our factories, we require huge hectarage. Because on a yearly basis, we produce about 1.2 million tonnes of sugar. You can't even put that into context. That's 1.2 billion packets of sugar that you'd find in your barrels. You can't even imagine that. I can't, certainly. Which is about half of the UK's supply of sugar. So the rest of it comes from our competitors, I won't name them, and also from abroad as well. One of the best things, and this is one of the first things that really, really made me passionate about our business, is we have an average of 28 miles, it's gone up slightly, average of 38 miles from field to factory. So our raw material is grown, on average, 30 miles away from the place that it's turned into sugar, from which it's then shipped around the UK to its end users. And again, we are a forward-thinking business. We've invested over £250 million in the last 5 years. That has predominantly been in the advanced tech and energy areas of our business. So about optimizing, decarbonising, and looking at new technology to help us better our business and improve our efficiencies. But beyond British Sugar, we're part of a bigger group. We're actually owned by Associated British Foods, who are one of the biggest conglomerates in the UK. This is great. This gives us security and also gives us opportunity both to learn, share, and also prosper in our careers. The ones across the top are our sugar businesses. Silver Spoon, you'll all know, that's our retail arm. And actually, if you have a bag of Silver Spoon in your cupboard, it was made in Bury. It was made at that Bury factory, packaged in that Bury factory plant, and shipped to whatever store you bought it from. So you'll know it's grown from probably within 30 miles of your house. Billingtons, there are fancy sugars. Ilovo, that's our South African and Central African sugar arm. It's about nine factories, I think, in Africa, currently owned by the same business. And there's 4 factories in Spain as well. That allows us to share our expertise. It's quite a small world, sugar technology, so having partners in other places is very useful. But we're so much more than that as a group. Primark, Kingsmill, Twinings, these are all names that are part of our ABF brand. And a career in British Sugar, as you transition beyond production, can sort of move into any of these sort of areas. Right, a sugar factory. This is what a sugar factory is in its most simple terms. We take on around 15,000 tonnes of beet every single day into Bury. 15,000 tonnes of beet is 700 lorries a day on average. 700 of those wagons come through our gates every single day, and all of that beet is processed by 7 o'clock the next morning. That's a huge undertaking. And then the second thing that I really loved about our business is we really have no waste. That beet comes in, it's washed. We take away some of the products from that, the stones, the soil off the fields. We've got our first co-product. We sell topsoil, we sell aggregate, we sell landscaping stones. The next stage is we take all the sugar out of that beet, and everything that's left is a pulp matter. That can then go to be something else. That pulp traditionally has been turned into animal feed, feeds all the lovely animals that then feed us. But more recently, we're moving into green energy. We actually established one of the biggest anaerobic digestion plants in the country, running off of our pressed pulp beet pressed pulp, and that again is at Bury. That produces 5 megawatts of electricity and forms part of the process technician's role of running that plant. Beyond that, we then actually make our sugar. It's a key one, we're nearly there, and then many, many more products associated with it. But doing so does require quite a lot of energy, and this is probably one of the things that really sets us apart from most food manufacturers. And in our sector, we are one of the biggest consumers of energy to do what we do, because we're not a traditional food industry. We're an agrochemical business in a lot of terms. So we really have started our roadmap to net zero. We've got clear goals that from the 2017 to 2030, we will reduce our carbon footprint by 50%. That is a huge undertaking when your current carbon footprint sits quite high for what we do. And that leads me on to my current role. That's what I do for Bury at the moment. I'm the decarbonisation project lead. So it's my job to actually go and figure out how we do this and then implement it. We're focusing on the factories at the moment. That's where we can have the most immediate impact. But obviously we are focusing on the field and our supply chain as well. So how do we minimise our carbon across our overall business? It's a little bit about British Sugar. I'll very briefly just take you through me. I think like a lot of people have already spoken, I had no idea what I wanted to do at school. I applied to 5 different universities for 5 different courses and picked the city that I liked the best in the end. But what I ended up doing was chemical engineering, and that really did expose me to a huge breadth of opportunity, and it's something that a lot of people probably never even exposed to at school. It's not your mechanical or your electrical. So I'd ask you to explore that, but beyond that itself, I still didn't know what to do when I finished university. I applied to 50 graduate schemes, did 30 assessment centres, got offered 20 jobs. That man over there is about to speak to you, also offered me a job, and that's the one I took. Because I'll tell you, I took one walk around a factory, and it is just phenomenal. The scale, the diversity, the equipment. It ranges from 1960s equipment that we still operate faster than it's ever operated, through to brand new cutting edge technology, all in the same environment. And yeah, it's just absolutely a phenomenal place to work in that respect. So yeah, fell in love with the factory, and also fell in love with the process, turning beet into sugar. Truly, truly phenomenal chemical process to undertake. From there, I've just then had opportunity after opportunity, became a shift manager, ran the process for 3 years, then moved into area manager, where I sort of specialised in turning the juice that we make into a sugar product, and now I've moved into my decarbonisation role. And really, I just wanted to outline to you that the business just has opportunities abound for anybody within it. Within a 10-year period, I've gone through 5 roles and continued in my seniority. I did that from a graduate scheme, but one thing I'd really like to highlight for everybody else here, there was a colleague of mine who finished his apprenticeship scheme at the time I finished my graduate scheme. At that point, he'd been working for 4 years. He'd probably accrued the best part of 100K 10 years ago in salary. I'd accrued a similar amount in debt. We then ended up on the same salary, and then 10 years later, we're in the same level of seniority, earning the same amount of money. He's just about 200 grand ahead of me. So don't underestimate the opportunity of apprenticeships, especially with a company like British Sugar.